Stop scrolling for just a second, because what you are about to hear is the moment the mainstream British press, after 18 months of careful deference, has finally and openly conceded on the record what every honest royal commentator has been saying for years. The Sussex marriage, the Sussex business, the Sussex Hollywood network, the Sussex grand strategy, all of it is in trouble. And the source of this admission is not a fringe blog. It is not an independent commentator. It is the editor-at-large of the Daily Mail itself, the very newspaper that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have spent years suing, threatening, and trying to silence. By the end of the next several minutes, you will understand exactly why this single piece of mainstream reporting is the most consequential Sussex story of the spring. Stay with me, because Alison Boshoff, in a long, carefully sourced conversation on Tom Sykes's Royalist podcast for the Daily Beast, has finally connected the dots that the rest of the British mainstream media has spent the better part of 2 years refusing to connect. The marriage tension, the children dispute, the Hollywood social collapse, the agent problem, the strategy vacuum, and the financial holes underneath the philanthropic image. 5 separate threads that, until now, have been treated as separate stories. Tonight, in this video, we are going to walk through how those threads, taken together, paint a picture of the Sussex situation that even the most loyal supporters can no longer easily ignore. Picture the scene: London, late spring 2026. The kind of slow, heavy news week where most royal coverage drifts into ceremonial filler. And then, on a podcast that royal insiders quietly listen to but rarely talk about, the editor-at-large of the Daily Mail walks through, point by point, exactly what is happening behind the wrought iron gates of Montecito. The royal commentary world, paying very close attention, suddenly realizes that the dam has broken. The Daily Mail, the very institution that the Sussexes have most aggressively litigated against, is no longer protecting the official narrative. The protection is over. The reporting is here. Let us begin with the children, because the very first crack in the marriage that Alison Boshoff identifies is the one that has, by every available account, produced the most genuine private friction inside the household. Meghan Markle, since returning to Instagram in early 2025, has been gradually, methodically, almost surgically increasing the amount of partial visibility she gives the world of her 2 children, Archie and Lilibet. Read those names carefully, because the way they are being introduced to the public is not, by any reasonable assessment, the way 2 grounded, security-minded parents would handle the visibility of their own young children. The technique Boshoff identifies is fascinating in its precision. She compares it to grandmother's footsteps, the old parlor game where you turn around and somebody in the room takes a small step forward when your back is turned and tries not to be caught moving. That is exactly what is happening on the Sussex Instagram feed. Lilibet from this angle. Archie from this angle. The back of a head. The corner of a smile. A leg disappearing into the next room. A glimpse of a hand. Always partial. Always careful. Never the full face. But taken together over weeks and months, an unmistakable pattern of gradual exposure emerges, step by step, frame by frame, until the protection that was once treated as absolute is now, in practice, almost entirely gone. Boshoff's question, framed gently but landing brutally, is the right one. Why are we not being a little bit more binary about this? Either the children are protected from the world, or they are not. Read those words again. There is no philosophical middle ground. There is no creative third path. Either you keep your young children entirely off the public stage, the way Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William have managed for over a decade with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, or you accept that they are part of the public spectacle. The Sussex approach, the slow, calibrated frame-by-frame leak, is, as Alison Boshoff puts it, the very Sussex way of going down some kind of confusing middle road. And here is the heart of why this matters so much for the marriage, because by every reliable account, this is the single issue Prince Harry feels most strongly about: the protection of his children. The avoidance of the kind of media intrusion that defined the worst chapters of his own childhood. The genuine, deeply held desire that Archie and Lilibet should never feel hunted in the way Princess Diana was hunted. That principle was supposedly one of the central reasons given for the entire post-royal exit in 2020. The Sussex brand was built, in significant part, on the public claim that the British media environment was unsafe for the children, that California offered a kind of privacy that London never could, and that Prince Harry was making the ultimate parental sacrifice to protect his family. Set that publicly stated principle against the Instagram pattern Boshoff describes, and the contradiction becomes structural. The man who walked away from his country to protect his children from media intrusion is now married to a woman who, by every available account, is using those same children as content for her social media following. That is not a small disagreement between two parents. That is a fundamental, almost philosophical breach of the original promise upon which the entire Sussex public project was built. The British public is increasingly noticing the gap. There is a deeper, almost generational dimension to this dispute that deserves attention because Prince Harry, perhaps more than any other living member of the royal family, was shaped by the lived consequences of childhood media exposure, the pursuit of his mother by paparazzi, the relentless documentary attention of his teenage years, and the bargain he and Prince William reportedly struck with the British media as young adults, requesting privacy in exchange for a measure of cooperation in their public roles. These are not abstract principles for Prince Harry. They are the lived structure of his entire emotional biography. To watch a parent of his own young children take a different approach, even a partially different approach, is the kind of slow, accumulating wound that, in a healthy marriage, would normally be addressed in private and resolved through compromise. The Alison Boshoff reporting suggests that this resolution is not happening. The Instagram pattern continues. The partial visibility increases, and Prince Harry, by every available indication, is unable to hold the line. That is the story of a man losing a private argument inside his own household in real time, with the gradually accumulating evidence visible to anyone with an Instagram account. Stay close, because the Boshoff reporting then opens the second front, the career disaster. And the way she lays it out is genuinely devastating because she does not just list one or two strained Hollywood relationships. She lists, with confident specificity, the entire ecosystem of senior power brokers the Sussex camp has now alienated. Anna Wintour at Vogue, traditionally the most influential gatekeeper in fashion media, alienated. The Met Gala circle increasingly distant. An invitation that should, by every measure of post-royal celebrity logic, have been a routine annual fixture has not been forthcoming. The Kardashian-Jenner family, who command millions of dollars per Instagram post and were, by Alison Boshoff's account, actually doing Meghan Markle a quiet commercial favor by promoting as ever products to their own enormous audiences, became alienated after the so-called Photogate incident at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party. At that event, hosted by Jeff Bezos, the Sussexes reportedly attended a high-profile gathering and then publicly demanded that photographs of their attendance be removed from the internet. That is the kind of move that, in Hollywood social terms, you can do exactly once. And once you have done it, the doors close quietly and permanently, without a press release. Lauren Sanchez, who hosted the Jenner birthday event and who was, until very recently, considered an ally, is now, by every available account, considerably less warm. Jeff Bezos, whose patience with the Sussex demands for photographic control reportedly evaporated during the same incident, also appears increasingly distant. Then there is Ari Emanuel, the most powerful single agent in modern Hollywood, the founder and chief executive of WME, the agency that, at least in theory, still represents Meghan Markle. Boshoff's reporting suggests that whatever the official representation paperwork still says, in practice Emanuel has personally washed his hands of the Sussex account after a particularly difficult dispute over staffing requests around an American holiday weekend. And then there is Ted Sarandos, the co-chief executive of Netflix, the streamer that wrote the Sussexes their largest single post-royal check, who has also, by Boshoff's account, reportedly reached the end of his personal patience. Read that list again. Anna Wintour, the Kardashians, Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos, Ari Emanuel, Ted Sarandos. That is not a list of random celebrities. These are not minor industry contacts. This is a roll call of the single most influential power brokers in 21st century American celebrity culture. And the Sussex camp has, in the space of less than 5 years, systematically alienated every single one of them. Pause on the structural significance of that fact, because the entire premise of the post-royal Sussex business model was that Hollywood power could replace institutional royal support. That celebrity friendships could substitute for the platform they had given up. That a sun-bleached estate in Montecito, surrounded by the wealthiest and most influential figures in modern American entertainment, would provide a softer, warmer, more lucrative ecosystem than the cold British institution they had left behind. That bet, by every visible measure, has failed. The protective ring of celebrity allies that was supposed to insulate the Sussex brand from criticism has instead dissolved, one figure at a time. And what is left in the center of that vanished ring is a couple with a 16-bedroom mansion, a pair of dwindling brand projects, and an ever-shrinking list of professional colleagues willing to take their phone calls. But hold on, because the third front in the Alison Boshoff reporting is, in some ways, the most damaging of all from a strategic perspective. The strategy itself, she says, has collapsed. There is no longer a coherent Sussex business plan. There is no longer a clear positioning. There is no longer a narrative throughline. There is instead what Boshoff describes as momentum without direction. Read those three words carefully, because they are devastating in their precision. Momentum without direction. The Sussex public relations team is, by every available indication, generating activity, magazine covers, brand launches, cameos, television specials, production credits, but none of it appears connected to a larger, coherent long-term strategy. Charity appearances, foreign tours. The activity, in raw volume terms, is considerable. But the activity does not point in a single direction. It does not build toward a coherent commercial identity. It does not reinforce a single, coherent positioning. Instead, it feels scattershot. One month, Meghan Markle is on the cover of Harper's Bazaar, presenting herself as a fashion figure while making no mention whatsoever of her own holiday television special airing the same week. The next month, she is making a brief on-screen cameo in an Amazon film, but only in the role of herself, raising the question of whether she is, in any current sense, an actress at all. The next month, she is insisting Netflix release a public statement reaffirming their continued commercial relationship, only for that relationship to be quietly downgraded into a single salvage scripted series project. Is she a fashion figure? Is she an actress? Is she a television producer? Is she a lifestyle entrepreneur? Is she a humanitarian campaigner? Is she a brand founder? Is she a podcast host? Is she a philanthropist? The answer, by every available indication, is yes to all of these, and successful at none of them. Because the strategic problem with trying to be everything is that you end up being nothing in particular. And in the modern celebrity economy, nothing in particular is worth almost nothing in particular. There is an instructive contrast worth drawing here. Compare the Sussex strategic incoherence to the careful, generational positioning of the figures who have actually built durable post-celebrity empires in modern American life. Gwyneth Paltrow, often invoked as a comparison point, spent over a decade building Goop into a coherent, if controversial, lifestyle authority brand before she ever attempted to scale it commercially. Martha Stewart spent years building trust, identity, and expertise before expanding her empire. Martha Stewart spent decades establishing herself as the unimpeachable authority on domestic excellence before she ever launched her own product line. Even Oprah Winfrey, the most successful celebrity entrepreneur of the past half-century, spent 25 years building her television authority before she ever launched the magazine, the cable network, or the production company. The pattern is consistent. Build the authority first. Build the trust first. Build the audience first. Then, and only then, monetize the platform you have spent decades earning. The Sussex approach has, in effect, been an attempt to pursue all of these stages simultaneously, with no underlying authority to support any of them. The result is the scattershot quality Alison Boshoff identifies: activity without authority, output without ownership, visibility without value. Boshoff identifies the structural cause of this scattershot strategy with admirable clarity. The Sussex camp has effectively lost its agent. Whatever the official paperwork says about WME representation, the practical reality is that there is no senior, commercially aligned figure in Hollywood currently driving a coherent commercial plan for Meghan Markle. There is no agent setting up the next acting role. There is no agent negotiating the next endorsement. There is no agent strategically positioning the brand portfolio. There is, instead, a lawyer, the same lawyer Meghan Markle has had since before she met Prince Harry, doing what lawyers do, which is not, by any reasonable definition, the same thing an agent does. Bischoff puts the question with brutal directness. If you were a film producer, who would you call to discuss casting Meghan Markle in your next film? If you were a brand executive, who would you call to discuss her endorsing your next product launch? Who is actually doing the deals? The honest answer, by every available indication, is nobody. There is no functioning commercial deal-making structure currently operating behind the Sussex brand. The commercial apparatus around the Sussex brand has collapsed. The structure is gone. The deals have stopped. And the activity that remains is increasingly activity for its own sake, generating headlines, but not revenue, generating visibility, but not commercial momentum. Stay close, because the fourth front in the Alison Bischoff reporting is the financial picture. And this is where the analysis becomes genuinely uncomfortable, because the carefully cultivated public image of the Sussexes as wealthy global philanthropists, gliding from one international charitable engagement to the next, depends entirely on the assumption that the underlying finances can actually support the lifestyle. Bischoff, citing the financial reporting in Tom Bower's recent work, suggests that the underlying finances do not, in fact, support the lifestyle. The figure that emerges from her reporting is genuinely staggering. The recent Colombian tour, by Bower's account quoted in the Bischoff conversation, may have cost in the region of $4 million to deliver. Read that figure twice. $4 million to send the Sussex couple to one country for 1 week of carefully managed engagements. The reporting suggests that the security costs alone, which the Sussex camp proudly insists they pay themselves, dwarf any income generated by the trip itself. Prince Harry, at premium speaking rates, may collect around $50,000 per appearance. Meghan Markle, at her current commercial valuation, may collect perhaps $150,000 per appearance, with the original Sussex side claims of $300,000 or higher reportedly being significantly inflated. Multiply those speaking fees across a week of engagements, and the income simply cannot, by any honest accounting, cover the production costs of mounting the trip. In cold financial terms, the international tours are loss leaders. They generate visibility. They generate headlines. They generate the appearance of continued royal-style global relevance. But they do not, in straightforward income terms, generate enough revenue to pay for themselves. Which raises the obvious follow-up question. If the tours are losing money, who is actually paying for them? The Tom Bower reporting suggests, controversially, that significant portions of the financial underwriting may be coming from external charitable foundations. That is a startling claim, and it deserves to be treated with appropriate caution. But it also points to a structural reality. The Sussex tours are not, in any conventional sense, commercial, revenue-generating activities. They are instead externally subsidized public appearances dressed up as global philanthropy. That distinction matters enormously because the Sussex public image depends on the audience believing that the couple are themselves generating the kind of substantial wealth that allows them to glide across continents performing acts of charity. Alison Bischoff's reporting suggests that the actual mechanism is rather different. External money flows into the Archwell Foundation. Archwell then ostentatiously distributes small, highly publicized sums to selected charitable causes. The Sussexes, in turn, collect the photo opportunities, the speaking awards, and the visibility associated with those distributions. The net effect is the appearance of philanthropy without the underlying personal wealth that would make genuine billionaire-scale philanthropy possible. Bischoff puts it bluntly, you can only truly be a philanthropist if you are a billionaire. The essence of philanthropy is having so much money that you no longer know what to do with it, so you simply give it away. The Sussexes do not have that kind of money. So what they have to do instead is perform the dance of philanthropy, channel external funds through their foundation, distribute carefully selected amounts publicly, and maintain the appearance of vast personal generosity. They distribute those funds in carefully timed, carefully publicized increments, and then collect the reputational dividends as if the money were originally theirs. That is not philanthropy. That is, in the most polite available framing, philanthropy-adjacent performance. And the British public, with its long tradition of genuine institutional philanthropy from royal figures who have actually done the work for decades without television cameras present, is increasingly seeing it for what it is. The contrast with how authentic institutional philanthropy actually operates inside the British royal family is genuinely instructive. King Charles III, long before he ever became sovereign, founded the Prince's Trust in 1976, an organization that has, over the subsequent 50 years, helped more than 1 million young people across the United Kingdom. That is not a publicity-adjacent number. That is a real, documented institutional record of genuine impact, built quietly and patiently, decade after decade, with the kind of structural support and personal commitment that only sustained institutional engagement can produce. Princess Anne has similarly chaired Save the Children for decades, and her annual public engagement schedule consistently exceeds that of almost every other working royal. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has spent more than a decade building the Royal Foundation Centre for Early Childhood into a serious research and policy institution. These are not photo opportunities. These are not magazine spreads. These are the slow, patient, institutionally rigorous structures that genuine royal philanthropy has always relied upon. And every single one of them was built with humility, with the willingness to do the unglamorous administrative work, and with a long-term commitment that extends far beyond a single news cycle, the kind of commitment genuine philanthropy actually requires. Set the Sussex performance against this generational standard, and the gap is not just visible, it becomes impossible to ignore. The gap is not just embarrassing, it is structural. Stay with me, because the fifth front in the Alison Boshoff reporting brings everything back together into a single, damning conclusion. The strategy is incoherent. The agents are gone. The Hollywood ecosystem has cooled. The finances do not support the lifestyle. The marriage is under strain over the children. And the public image of high moral rectitude, the image upon which the entire Sussex project depends, is structurally no longer sustainable. Boshoff's framing of the underlying psychology is fascinating because it explains so much of the otherwise inexplicable behavior the public has watched over the past several years. The Sussexes, she argues, want to be perceived as people of high moral rectitude and high value to the world on something close to a presidential level. They want to be seen as global philanthropists and international moral voices. They want, in short, the kind of social standing that genuine generational wealth normally purchases. But they do not have generational wealth. They have a fading commercial portfolio, a shrinking list of allies, an estranged relationship with the institution that originally underwrote their global visibility, and a growing public skepticism on both sides of the Atlantic. So they perform. They perform philanthropy. They perform global influence. They perform fashion authority. They perform celebrity friendship. They perform marital unity. They perform parenthood. They perform Hollywood relevance. And the more they perform, the more the gap between the performance and the underlying reality becomes visible to anyone paying close attention. That is the picture Boshoff has assembled. And the fact that this picture is now being assembled openly, on a mainstream British media platform, by the editor-at-large of a national newspaper is itself the real news. The protection has lifted. The careful avoidance is over. The British mainstream media has, by every visible indication, decided that the Sussex story is no longer worth softening. There is a further dimension to this shift that deserves attention because the British press environment has, until very recently, been operating under genuine legal pressure. The Sussex litigation strategy, however unsuccessful in court, has imposed considerable financial and legal costs on the publications it has targeted. Several mainstream British outlets have, by every available indication, made internal editorial decisions to avoid certain Sussex-related angles entirely, simply because the legal exposure was not worth the editorial benefit. That calculation has slowly but unmistakably started to shift. The Sussex legal strategy is no longer producing the differential coverage it once produced. The risk-benefit analysis inside British editorial offices has tilted, and the result visible in this Alison Boshoff reporting is that the mainstream British press is, once again, finally doing its job. It is worth understanding the structural reasons why this shift is happening now, after several years of considerably more cautious mainstream coverage. The first factor is litigation fatigue. The Sussex camp has now pursued a sequence of high-profile court cases against multiple British publications, with mixed and often unsuccessful outcomes. Each case has produced its own paper trail, its own court filings, its own release documents, and its own gradual revelation of how the Sussex side actually operates behind the scenes. That accumulating record has, over time, eroded the deference the British press once extended. The second factor is commercial reality. The Sussex brand, by every measurable indicator, no longer commands the kind of audience attention that justifies special editorial treatment. When polling suggests that nearly 70% of the British public has become increasingly disengaged or skeptical, the incentive for protective coverage naturally begins to disappear. When polling suggests that roughly 70% of the British public views Prince Harry negatively and nearly 80% views Meghan Markle negatively, the commercial logic of producing soft Sussex coverage simply no longer adds up. British editors, like all editors, ultimately answer to their readers, and their readers, by every measurable indication, want the kind of honest, skeptical, critically engaged reporting that Alison Boshoff has now openly delivered. The third factor is the broader competitive media environment. Independent commentators on platforms like Substack and YouTube, operating outside the traditional defamation-sensitive media framework, have been doing the harder reporting on the Sussex situation for years. Mainstream British outlets that continued to soft-pedal the story were increasingly being competitively outflanked by independent voices doing the actual investigative work. That competitive pressure has, over time, forced mainstream outlets to either match the independent reporting or watch their audiences migrate elsewhere. The Boshoff piece is, in many ways, the moment a mainstream British outlet finally chose to match the independent reporting rather than continue losing audience share to it. Now consider what this all means for the next several years of royal coverage. The Sussex camp has lost its primary mainstream British media protection. It has lost its key Hollywood powerbroker relationships. It has lost its most powerful single agent. It has lost the warmth of its most important celebrity allies. It has lost, by polling measure, the substantial majority of British public goodwill. It has lost the genuine creative partnerships that initially made its post-royal commercial portfolio possible. And it has lost, by every available indication, the internal coherence that would have allowed it to course-correct. What it still has is a 16-bedroom mansion, a complicated marriage with growing public reports of tension, and a rapidly narrowing circle of institutional and commercial support. A small remaining staff, a handful of charitable initiatives operating largely on external funding, a commercial brand facing an unresolved logo dispute and limited consumer traction, a streaming partnership reduced to a single salvaged scripted project, and a public image increasingly out of step with the underlying reality that is not, by any reasonable assessment, a sustainable position. It is the kind of position from which careful, costly, dignified retrenchment is the only realistic path forward. And the question Alison Boshoff's reporting raises, without ever stating it directly, is whether the people inside the Montecito estate are capable of executing that retrenchment, or whether the next several years will instead unfold as a slow, painful public unwinding of a project that may have been structurally incapable of delivering on its promises from the very beginning. So where does this leave the British royal family? It leaves them, for the first time in 5 years, in a quietly, almost mournfully, strong position. Not because they actively defeated the Sussex narrative. They did not. They simply waited, endured, and continued performing the patient daily work that the Sussex project, by definition, was never able to perform. And now, slowly, the British public, the British mainstream press, and even significant portions of the international audience are returning to a perspective that recognizes what the institution has been doing all along. The work, the real, daily, unglamorous work, of being royal in the 21st century. Catherine, Princess of Wales, navigating personal illness with extraordinary public grace. Prince William, gradually becoming the visible, emotionally intelligent future king the country has quietly hoped for. Princess and continuing the relentless schedule of public engagements that has defined her entire adult life. And King Charles III, steadily maintaining the institution through years of turbulence and public scrutiny. King Charles III is navigating a serious medical situation while continuing to discharge his constitutional duties. James, Earl of Wessex, recently elevated to his princely style, carries himself with the kind of quiet dignity that suggests a young man genuinely prepared to serve. The institutional core, despite every wave of public turbulence, remains intact and is, by every visible indication, growing stronger as the years pass. The Sussex chapter, by contrast, appears to be reaching its natural point of exhaustion. The Alison Boshoff reporting tonight is not the cause of that exhaustion. It is, instead, the moment the mainstream British press finally felt safe enough to describe what was already structurally unfolding. The marriage is under strain. The Hollywood circle has cooled. The finances do not match the image. The strategy has fragmented. The agents are gone. The relationships are damaged. The public is fatigued. And the protection of mainstream press deference has lifted. Stay with this story, because the next chapter, the chapter where the consequences of this structural exhaustion begin to become publicly visible, is only just beginning to unfold. And the Boshoff reporting tonight may ultimately be remembered by future royal historians as the moment the British press, after years of legal and commercial caution, finally said the quiet part out loud. The Sussex project is not working. The Sussex project has not been working for some time. And the institution the Sussexes walked away from is quietly and gracefully reaching the end of its patience for the performance. The wedding photograph has left the table at Highgrove. The Met Gala invitation has not arrived. The agents are no longer returning calls. The streaming deal is now only a salvaged remnant of what it once promised to be. And the brand itself is facing trademark complications across multiple continents. The marriage is under visible strain over the children, and the British mainstream press has finally stopped pretending otherwise. That, in the end, is the real story of the spring of 2026. Not a dramatic announcement. Not a single explosive headline event. Just the slow, dignified, almost regretful turning of the page by a British public that has waited, with considerable patience, for the moment when honest reporting could finally resume. By a mainstream press that has ultimately calculated that the legal risk of telling the truth is no longer greater than the editorial cost of avoiding it. And by an institution that, throughout all of this, has simply continued to do the work, without comment, without retaliation, without public bitterness, until the patient logic of duty itself produced an outcome that no public relations strategy could ever have manufactured. The institution endures. The Sussex experiment appears to be reaching its natural exhaustion point. And the next several years of royal commentary will, by every available indication, be defined by the slow, painful public unwinding of a project that promised everything and is now, in the cold accounting of mainstream media reporting, visibly delivering very little of it. Stay close, because what comes next will not be sudden. It will not be dramatic. It will not arrive with a single explosive announcement. It will arrive instead the way the Alison Boshoff reporting itself arrived. Quietly, carefully, cumulatively, one small but devastating piece of mainstream confirmation at a time, until the fully assembled picture becomes so clear that even the most loyal supporters can no longer credibly avoid it. For viewers watching tonight, here is the question worth sitting with. The Sussex story has, for nearly a decade now, been one of the most polarizing and emotionally charged narratives in modern royal history. The Sussex story has become one of the dominant cultural narratives of modern celebrity life on both sides of the Atlantic. It has consumed extraordinary amounts of media attention, generated millions of headlines, produced multiple best-selling memoirs and streaming documentaries, and reshaped public conversations about race, royalty, mental health, family, and modern celebrity culture. Whatever your view of the principles involved, the cultural significance of the story is undeniable. So when a story of that magnitude reaches its structural exhaustion point, it is worth pausing to acknowledge the moment, not with celebration, not with cruelty, not with triumphalism, but with the careful attention that any major cultural narrative deserves as it moves toward its natural conclusion. There is also a deeper, almost philosophical reflection embedded in the Alison Boshoff reporting that is worth lingering on. What the entire Sussex situation has demonstrated, perhaps more clearly than any other modern celebrity case study, is the impossibility of building durable public stature on a foundation of grievance alone. The Sussex Public Project, in its most fundamental architecture, has always been a story about what was unfair, what was withheld, what was denied, and what was endured. That framing, however emotionally compelling it may be in any individual moment, is structurally incompatible with the kind of long-term public regard that institutional service can build. Public regard requires demonstrated value over time. It requires offered service, not repeated complaint. It requires what you contribute, not what you accuse others of withholding. Catherine, Princess of Wales, has built one of the most durable public reputations in modern royal history precisely by inverting this principle. She rarely speaks publicly about her own difficulties. She rarely complains about institutional pressures. She rarely positions herself as the injured party in public life. She does not present herself as a victim. She simply, quietly, and persistently gives. And the British public, with its long memory and instinctive recognition of authentic service, has rewarded her accordingly. The Sussex approach, by every visible measure, has done the opposite. And the structural exhaustion that the Alison Boshoff reporting now describes is, in many ways, the inevitable arithmetic of a public project built primarily on grievance rather than contribution. The next several years of royal coverage will, by every available indication, gradually shift away from the Sussex story and toward the broader, more positive narrative of the Wales household, the Edinburgh household, and the wider institutional renewal taking place inside the British monarchy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William will continue growing into their roles as the dignified center of public attention. Princess Charlotte will quietly emerge as one of the most closely watched young royals of her generation, shaped by the kind of careful, protected upbringing that produces lasting public goodwill. Prince George will, later this year, begin his boarding school education at the same type of traditional British institution his father attended. And the British public will likely receive that transition with the warm, almost familial regard that the Wales household has earned through years of patient public service. Prince Louis will continue providing the kind of natural, unforced charm that has already made him a generational favorite. And Prince James, recently elevated to his princely style, will gradually step into the technical, science-focused lieutenant role that his temperament and education appear to have prepared him for. The future of the institution is being written in real time. And the Boshoff reporting, in its quiet but devastating thoroughness, represents the moment the mainstream press finally turned to face that future rather than continuing to look backward at a Sussex chapter that, by every measurable indication, appears to have reached its conclusion. The truth, as the saying goes, eventually comes out. And tonight, on a podcast that royal insiders quietly listen to but rarely discuss openly, that process became impossible to ignore.